As the much-anticipated elections edge ever closer and closer, political parties are intensifying their campaigns. One of the tripartite alliance members, SACP, has unveiled what it says is a robust political strategy against neoliberalism ahead of the 2024 polls. The SACP says as part of its political strategy, it will engage its allied partners on the reconfiguration of the alliance. For more on this, we are joined by Dr. Alex Mashilo from the SACP. Dr. Mashilo, a very good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Greetings to you and to the viewers at home.
Dr. Mashilo, let's go straight into it. I mean, when you say that you are launching and looking at a different ideology, if I can call it that, and challenging the ideas of neoliberalism, what would be at the heart of that as we go into this election year?
Okay, thank you very much. We are not necessarily looking into a different ideology. On Saturday, the 6th of this month, at the Avalon Cemetery, our General Secretary Solima Baila will use his keynote message to outline the key tenets of our strategy going forward. We have been engaging with our alliance partners to reconfigure the alliance, so that when you listen to the public representatives who have come through the ANC-headed list of the alliance, you also hear the voices of the SACP and of CASATU articulating working class interests. The way the alliance is configured and going back, by and large, what you hear is the mandate emanating from the African National Congress. When the ANC leaders go and address the caucuses to communicate the ANC mandate, you would have noticed that there would be no alliance partners, and at times there would have been no alliance consultation. Now, what we decided in December at our last Central Committee plenary for 2023 is that we are going to be upgrading our engagement within the alliance for a reconfiguration of this alliance to move with the time into an active struggle to achieve the reconfiguration. In the previous elections, when we campaigned within the framework of the alliance, by and large we limited our articulation to agreed upon points in the manifesto. This time around, going to the 2024 national and provincial elections, we are not going to do that. In addition, should any working class interest not make it into the manifesto, including our measures against what we call neoliberal policies, for example, austerity, should those working class interests not make it into the manifesto, we are going to use the campaigning period to elevate those interests and our independent voice. We are preparing for the future here, because in the future, should the alliance not be reconfigured, it will have no future, if I may repeat that word, because without the reconfiguration of the alliance, there is no way the alliance will serve as a future electoral modality for the working class, especially led by the SACP. That's why we are going to employ this as our strategy for the forthcoming elections.
Dr. Mashilo, maybe if I may, when you talk about reconfiguration, and it almost sounds like you're saying that things need to change in how the tripartite alliance has been working together, lack of a better phrasing. But what sort of reconfiguration are we talking about? Is it from a policy perspective? I mean, you mentioned, and I also touched on the issue of neoliberalism that you have spoken about. So what sort of reconfiguration are we talking about in this instance?
You are absolutely correct. The reconfiguration must be anchored in a recommitment to achieve the aims of the Freedom Charter. Let me give you an example. Under neoliberal policies, the state must have a limited role in the economy. It therefore cannot have, for example, as it has been the case for the past 30 years now, we do not have a state bank in South Africa. What does the Freedom Charter say about the banking sector? The Freedom Charter envisages a dominant role of the state in the banking sector. 30 years on, there is no bank. Even state institutions are banking with private commercial banks, and they are being ripped off like all of us when we go to the private commercial bank to look for financial services. I will give a practical example because this hit at the heart of what has happened. During the COVID-19, the state introduced a COVID-19 relief for small enterprises. The commercial banks administered the state-guaranteed loan schemes in the same way as they administer their financialized products. As a result, that scheme effectively failed to achieve its purpose. During that time, the working class had lost over 2.2 million jobs. If the state had a state-owned bank, it would have administered that fund through the state-owned bank, and many of the enterprises, especially those owned by Africans or black people in general, including women and youth, will not have closed down. Now when you are in the big cities and the big towns, you meet people who owned small, medium, and micro enterprises who tell you we used to have these enterprises, but we didn't have them during COVID because the banks failed to administer that fund to help these small, medium, and micro enterprises. That is an example. We are now under load shedding. This came as a result of neoliberal policies which attacked the role of the state in the economy. In 1998, a decision was taken when the white paper on energy was adopted that energy security will come from power generated by private power producers called independent power producers. When that model failed, it delivered South Africa into the load shedding that we are facing and the job losses. Now, if the SACP will not pull up its socks, mobilize the working class against neoliberal policies, and ensure that the immediate interests of the working class find profound expression in the manifesto, then we are going to have problems. That's why we are following this as our strategy for the forthcoming elections, and noting that the elections to be held this year are not the last elections. At the same time, we are building a popular left front and a mass-based socialist movement, because there is nowhere in the future we can continue with the alliance without reconfiguration. Reconfiguration hits at the heart of the agenda. It also hits at the heart of the people you will see in the list. It can be, for example, in a province, you have ANC representatives in the list from 1 up to 18 up to 20. Only thereafter you begin to see some SACP and ANC and COSATU faces. That's not how a reconfigured alliance will work. Its list will be inclusive, but most importantly, a reconfigured alliance will be based on a changed agenda to assert the interests of the majority of our people.
Dr. Mashilo, Dr. Mashilo, if I may come in there, I mean, when you talk about the complete refiguration, as you explain, but also touching on the issue of neoliberalism, one would say, but you've been part of the alliance. You've been there for years with the same ruling party. Have you not had an opportunity to challenge some of these things, to challenge some of these policies? Is it not too late, at the risk of asking too many questions at the same time, is it not too late to start raising these issues? Because elections can happen anytime between April and August.
It is not too late. In 1996, when our government shifted to its adoption of neoliberal policies, by imposing the redistribution. Together with COSATU, we went out against that policy. You will recall that brought about tensions within the alliance. In fact, in 1998, at the 10th National Congress of the SACP in Johannesburg, ANC leaders almost suggested that we must leave the alliance. But we understood the value of the alliance and continued with the alliance, fighting against neoliberal policies both inside and outside the alliance. That is how we were able to stop wholesale privatization that was planned at that time. There are victories we have won, but there are losses we have incurred. Now we are upgrading our strategies by adding the two legs, forging a popular left front and building a mass-based socialist movement, just in case one day in the future the alliance is not reconfigured, so that we are not prisoners of an alliance that has not been reconfigured.
Is the state of the alliance, Dr. Mashilo, in good health? Is the relationship still hunky-dory? Because it sounds like you guys are not finding each other to a certain extent, and that's why you are calling for the reconfiguration.
The alliance is just like any other family, where there are differences of opinions between husbands and wives. Sometimes this includes children. When there are differences in opinions, you cannot say we are unhealthy. These differences must sharpen in a direction that will resolve the problems. As things stand right now, there are areas where we disagree in terms of policy direction, and there are areas where we agree. What we need to do is to strengthen areas where we agree and work together to resolve the areas where we disagree.
All right.
And one key area that has to be resolved is this reconfiguration of the alliance.
All right, Dr. Mashilo.
Because I can tell you, without reconfiguration, the alliance will have no future. Put differently, if I may use an example.
Very briefly, Dr. Mashilo, we are out of time. Yeah.
Just quickly, the ANC knows that without renewing the ANC, it is going nowhere in the future. In the same way, without reconfiguring the alliance won't go anywhere in the future.
All right, Dr. Mashilo, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming through to speak to us. Dr. Alex Mashilo, talking about the reconfiguration of the alliance, one to watch definitely as we head into the polls later in the year.